I am absolutely furious about it, James. I cannot believe that they've done it. This is what the Albanese Labor government does in Australia. It's a complete waste of money that goes on constantly all the time. You know, in Queensland, we have kids and the elderly and people who can't get operations purely for the fact is we haven't got the money to supply for the nursing staff or the beds for them. Now, case in point, there's a 9-year-old girl, she's been waiting 7 years to have a tonsillectomy operation. 7 years. She's lost 20 days of school in the last term. She may have to repeat grade 4. It's depressing her, and she's not doing well at all. So hence, I've actually offered to pay for this operation, which is now going to go ahead on the 27th of August. Now, these are important things to people, to have these important operations done, not flying politicians here for 90 minutes from all over the country at taxpayers' expense. So I'm very furious about this. Another thing too, it was a previous government under the coalition that actually supported, with the support of One Nation and my vote, got the tax-free tax cuts across the line. They were already in legislation and accounted for. The Albanese government tweaked it a bit to take tax cuts off those high income earners. So those tax cuts were already there in place anyway, and yet to drag people from around the country to pass these tax cuts is an absolute disgrace, and I hope the people remember this. They don't care about the taxpayers' dollars. They will spend it whichever way they want to, because you're going to suffer in the long run, because it has to come out of the taxpayers' pockets somewhere. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. As we said, this was meant to be the big saviour of Middle Australia, but we're going to bill taxpayers at the same time for it. It's extraordinary. Now, Senator, Parliament is back this week. You're planning to call for an inquiry into native title effectiveness. What are you looking at?
Yes, I am. I've been doing some research into this with native title in the early 1990s, just prior to the Eddie Mabo case, which was passed, Queensland versus Eddie Mabo versus Queensland government. That was in 1992. Now, prior to that, around that period of time, there was 14.22% of all land under Australia that was owned under native title. Latest figures that I have from 2016 is over 30%, and with another 31% under determination, which is believed to be passed. So we actually will have over 60% of Australia will be under native title. There's no sunset clause on it. I put it in a notice motion to actually call for a sunset clause on it. They all voted against it. So they don't want to have a sunset clause on it. How can less than 3% of the population own over 60% of native title without freehold? Aboriginals may own freehold land as well. And yet the other rest of the population, equating to about 26 million people, have to, compromise, or we can't go in certain places, or there are resources, just everything is being, questioned over all this. So I'm putting up another bill that I want it to go to the Legal and Constitutional Affairs Committee. I want an investigation into it. What has native title done for the country? What has it done for the Aboriginal people? It's tied up the land. They can't even own it or go on it themselves in a lot of the cases. So why are we continuing to do this?
I think a lot of Australians would very much support you in that inquiry, Senator. Staying with Indigenous issues, the PM promised Indigenous people a Truth and Justice Commission, but he now says Makarrata simply means a coming together, which is what his government is doing every day by talking with Indigenous people. Is he gaslighting Aboriginals?
Of course he's gaslighting. He can't even keep his promise, and not only that, he had the referendum, which he had to do to change the Constitution. They can put it in legislation, but he's not going to do that anyway. So because the legislation can be changed, he wanted to have it changed in the referendum to change the Constitution. That's why he wanted to put it in there. The whole thing is about putting Australia into this way native title, and I'm questioning it, is they want a black state and black nation within the nation. And that's what it's all about. That was planned in the 1980s. And that's the whole end game of this, is the division of pitting one Australian against another. We are all
$100,000 for just 90 minutes, not for hospitals, not for struggling families, not for a child waiting years for surgery. $100,000 of taxpayer money just to fly politicians in for a single meeting. and they say budgets are tight. When Pauline Hanson heard this, she didn't just criticize it, she went off. But this isn't just about outrage, it's about a pattern. Because the moment you actually listen to what was said in that exchange, one thing becomes painfully obvious. When ordinary people need help, the system suddenly has no money. A 9-year-old girl waiting 7 years for surgery, families struggling to get basic health care, hospitals lacking beds and staff. But when politicians need to show up for a 90-minute session, money appears instantly. No delays, no excuses. And that's where the real trap is. The government constantly talks about supporting Middle Australia. But what do their actions show? That taxpayer money is always available, just not for taxpayers. Then Hanson drops the second bomb, native title. She argues that land ownership under this system is expanding rapidly, potentially covering over 60% of Australia with no clear endpoint, no sunset clause, no hard limits, no serious public accountability. So the question becomes simple. If these policies are so important, why avoid a full investigation? What exactly are they afraid of uncovering? And this is where the bigger picture comes into focus. Because this isn't just about one $100,000 meeting, it's about a system where spending is justified when it benefits politicians, basic public needs are pushed aside, and anyone who questions it gets dismissed. Same pattern, over and over again. And then election season comes, and suddenly it's all about working for the people. But the reality? The system is working for itself, not for the families waiting in hospitals, not for the taxpayers funding it all. So here's the real question for you. If $100,000 of your money was spent on a 90-minute political meeting, would you accept that? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more breakdowns like this, where we go beyond headlines and expose what's really happening, make sure you subscribe. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because once you start pulling on this thread, it doesn't stop at one meeting or one policy. It raises a bigger question about priorities. How many essential services could $100,000 support? How many patients could be treated? How many real problems could be solved? Instead, it's gone in 90 minutes. And this is exactly why people are losing trust. Not because of one decision, but because of repeated decisions that send the same message. Power comes first. People come second. That's the disconnect. And until that changes, moments like this won't shock anyone anymore. They'll just confirm what people already believe.